Military units most dangerous in history. Most kids today grow up with video games, social media, and arguments about pineapple on pizza, but Spartan children, they grew up with one single question from the state. Are you tough enough to stay alive? From birth, a Spartan baby faced its first test, being carried up Mount Tagatus, to be inspected by the Council of Elders. If the baby was weak, disabled, or just looked not quite right, congratulations, it didn't make it past round 1. The ones who survived were brought home to prepare for round 2, a Spartan childhood. At age 7, while other kids were learning the alphabet, Spartan children entered the agoge, a brutal training system. Their curriculum included hand-to-hand combat, enduring hunger and cold, taking beatings, and an advanced wilderness survival class, being forced to steal food without getting caught. If they got caught, they weren't punished for stealing, they were punished for being bad at it. Sparta believed that if your kid wasn't smart enough to steal food, the battlefield would kill him anyway, so better he dies early and saves everyone some trouble. At age 20, a Spartan officially became a warrior, but they didn't get to go home and live like normal people. They lived in barracks, ate together, fought together, basically living the ancient version of bro life. No women needed. On the battlefield, Spartans didn't wear heavy armor like other armies. They wore a red cloak, grabbed a round shield, held a spear, and said, "That's enough." In 480 BC, the Persian king Xerxes marched to Greece with over 100,000 soldiers. Some say 200,000, but either way the number was a lot. He sent envoys to Sparta with a historic message: "Hand over your weapons." The Spartan king Leonidas replied with 2 legendary words, "Molon labe," roughly, "come and take them." This wasn't a cool movie line, it was a real, historically recorded flex. Leonidas led 300 Spartans plus several thousand Greek allies, who didn't get the spotlight to the pass of Thermopylae, a narrow choke point barely wide enough for a group karaoke session. The Persians attacked. The Spartans stood still like a wall. The Persians attacked again. The Spartans stayed there, even looking slightly bored. The battle lasted 3 days. Persians fell in waves while the Spartans still held strong. Eventually, a Greek trader revealed a mountain path to the Persians. Knowing they'd be surrounded, Leonidas let the allies retreat and kept the 300 Spartans to fight to the last man. No one ran, no one surrendered. They fought until none of them could stand. When it was over, Persia had lost thousands just to kill 300 Spartans. Xerxes likely looked at the battlefield and thought, "Why does my victory feel so pathetic?" If Sparta was absolute discipline, then the Viking berserkers were the answer to the question, what happens when you feed warriors hallucinogenic mushrooms, give them strong liquor, and tell them to forget fear? Berserkers weren't a formal military unit. They were a kind of spiritual combat phenomenon. Men who entered a state called berserker gang, an uncontrollable battle fury that modern science still can't fully explain. The name berserker comes from Old Norse, berserker, meaning bare shirt, or without armor. That's right. These guys went into battle with no armor, wearing bear or wolf skins, sometimes shirtless entirely. Why? They believed Odin granted them strength, and they didn't need protection because they couldn't feel pain. Before battle, berserkers performed a ritual, drinking alcohol mixed with something, possibly Amanita muscaria, a hallucinogenic mushroom, howling like wolves, and entering a combat trance. When the berserker gang stayed activated, they would feel no pain, fear no death, gain extraordinary strength, lose all reason, and attack anything that moved. Stories say berserkers could bite through shields with their teeth, walk through fire unharmed, keep fighting even with severe injuries. Some historians believe they experienced hysterical strength, the phenomenon where the body unlocks its full strength under extreme conditions, kind of like those stories of a mother lifting a car to save her child. In battle, berserkers were placed at the front lines. They charged first, with no formation, no tactics, just pure rage. Their goal: break the enemy's morale before the main army arrived. Imagine you're a medieval soldier standing neatly in formation, and across from you is a group of huge men, no armor, screaming like beasts, sprinting at you with wild white eyes. What would you think? I am not paid enough for this. The problem with berserkers was that once the berserker gang ended, they were completely exhausted, sometimes even collapsing. Some didn't remember anything they'd done. Basically, they were the Viking version of the Hulk: unstoppable strength, zero control. But berserkers were also a problem during peacetime. Without battles to fight, they still had rage episodes, sometimes attacking innocent people. So Viking society gradually saw them as a threat and began punishing those who lost control. By around the 12th century, as Christianity spread in Scandinavia, berserkers were seen as demonic or heretical. They were outlawed, hunted, and eventually disappeared from history. If Spartacus suffered to fight better and the berserkers were get drunk and smash things, then the samurai answered the question, what happens when you turn warriors into poets, but still let them carry swords? Samurai lived by the code of Bushido, loosely, the way of the warrior, but realistically, 99 ways to die with honor. Bushido taught one simple rule, honor matters more than life. Lose honor, then die, immediately. Samurai training was a bizarre combo. Swordsmanship to cut people, archery to shoot people, horseback riding to chase people, calligraphy to write beautifully, and poetry to complain about life. Yes, a samurai had to be strong enough to behead an enemy, yet refined enough to sit under falling cherry blossoms and whisper, "Ah, life is fleeting." Their weapon was the katana, a blade considered the samurai's soul. Lose your katana, lose your honor, and therefore you must commit suicide. There's a story about a samurai who dropped his sword in the middle of a battle. He charged into the enemy crowd, found his blade, and cut his way back out. Not because the sword was expensive, but because returning without it meant losing honor. The most famous story is the 47 Ronin. When their lord was forced to commit suicide, the 47 samurai spent 2 years pretending to live ordinary, powerless lives to deceive their enemy. Then one night, they struck, killed their master's enemy, and committed mass suicide. No one forced them, they did it because Bushido taught, once revenge is complete, die to preserve honor. The suicide ritual was called seppuku, cutting open one's stomach with a short blade. Kneel, stab the abdomen, and slice across. A companion would stand behind and behead you to end the suffering. It was incredibly painful, yet considered the highest form of honor. By the 19th century, as Japan modernized, carrying swords and being a samurai were outlawed. Saigo Takamori, one of the last samurai, rebelled against the government. He and his followers fought with swords against machine guns. They lost terribly, but they died the samurai way. No surrender, no retreat. In 1939, the Soviet Union decided to pay a visit to its neighbor Finland. They brought 1 million soldiers, thousands of tanks and aircraft, fully convinced they would take Finland in a few weeks. Just like someone else who thought they'd take Ukraine in 3 days. Finland had only 300,000 troops, outdated weapons, and a minus 40-degree winter, the kind of cold where your pee freezes mid-air. But Finland had one advantage. They actually knew how to live in this white hell. And among them was Simo Heihe, a tiny 1.52-meter-tall farmer who loved hunting. When the war began, Simo joined the army with a ridiculously simple tactic: wear white, lie in the snow, and shoot people. But the plot twist, he didn't use a scope. Why? Scopes reflect light and reveal your position. Basically, he played on hardcore mode. No scope, no cheats, just pure skill. He even packed snow into his mouth so his breath wouldn't show. He lay motionless in the snow for hours, sometimes all day, waiting like a patient spider, only colder and far more dangerous. Soviet troops began panicking as their soldiers kept dropping one by one, and no one knew why. No loud gunshot, no visible attacker, just comrades suddenly hitting the ground and never getting back up. They called this invisible killer the White Death. The Soviets thought, okay, he's just one sniper, let's send some pros to deal with him. They sent entire teams of elite snipers. Result, none of them came back. Simo killed them all. The Soviets tried Plan B, shell the area they suspected he was in. Simo had already left before they finished aiming. They tried Plan C, D, and E, dogs, recon planes, even burning forests. Simo was still there, still shooting, like he was filming a YouTube challenge titled "How many Soviets can I eliminate in 100 days?" And the answer? Over 500 men, with a rifle that didn't even have a scope. If you count his submachine gun kills, it's over 700. That's an average of 5 people a day, in weather where normal humans just want hot chocolate and a blanket. Eventually, an explosive bullet struck Simo in the face, tearing through his cheek. The Soviets celebrated. Finally, we got him. But plot twist, Simo didn't die. He woke up 11 days later, right as the war ended. His face was permanently disfigured, but he survived and lived quietly on his farm for another 60 years.